But first, the weakness of the West, the treachery when there are two democracies now fighting for the survival against terrorist armies and tyrannies. Let's start with the weakness of this Albanese government and Foreign Minister Penny Wong. Israel is now bombing the Hezbollah terrorist army that's funded by Iran and has taken over a third of Lebanon. Hezbollah had fired more than 8,000 rockets and missiles at Israel since October 7, and yesterday even aimed a missile at Tel Aviv. Israel has now hit back, assassinated Hezbollah fighters, and it's trying to wipe out Hezbollah ammunition stores hidden in homes and push that terrorist army back from the Israeli border. But our Foreign Minister says, stop it, bad Israel.
We condemn Hezbollah's continued attacks on Israel. But I do say again, Lebanese civilians cannot be made to pay the price of defeating Hezbollah. The global community has made clear that this destructive cycle must stop. What has happened in recent days only makes an immediate ceasefire in Gaza even more urgent. You would have heard me say this before, and I say it again, Lebanon cannot become the next Gaza.
Same message now from the weak US President Joe Biden. Let's have a ceasefire now that Israel is defending itself.
He put out a statement for a 21-day ceasefire along the Israeli-Lebanese border. We were able to generate significant support from Europe as well as the Arab nations. It's important this war not widen.
Let's have more diplomacy, these people say, not war. Will you tell me how this diplomacy works? I mean, Wong has called for a year for Hamas to give back the Jewish hostages it still holds in tunnels. It won't. So what's she now going to do? Well, Hezbollah, the United Nations had to deal with to keep Hezbollah and its missiles right out of southern Lebanon, away from Israel's border, right up to the Litani River. Well, clearly that's failed, hasn't it? And the UN did nothing, even when Hezbollah attacked its peacekeepers in south of Lebanon. How did that diplomacy work? The ceasefire now would just give Hezbollah breathing space to prepare its defences and to live to attack Israel another day. In effect, Wong is helping Hezbollah. Now, Israel wants to protect its people, its country, but Wong, in my opinion, she just wants to save Labour from Muslim voters in Western Sydney. But there's another betrayal here of Ukraine. And here's another democracy fighting for its life, this time against the Russian invaders sent in 2.5 years ago by Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, who's deliberately bombing hospitals, railway stations, apartment blocks, and now power stations, trying to make Ukrainians freeze in the coming winter, as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky told the United Nations yesterday.
As of today, Russia has destroyed all our thermal power plants and a large part of our hydroelectric capacity. This is how Putin is preparing for winter, hoping to torment millions of Ukrainians, ordinary families. And if, God forbid, Russia causes a nuclear disaster at one of our nuclear power plants, radiation will not respect state borders. And unfortunately, various nations could feel the devastating effects.
So what have we done to help? Now, sure, we have sent some aid, Bushmasters, great. But this Albanese government has also stripped and buried Taipan helicopters we didn't need, literally buried them in the dirt rather than giving them to Ukraine. And in February, Defence Minister Richard Marles said the government also wouldn't give Ukraine 59 Abrams tanks we don't need anymore. Wasn't on the agenda, he said. Well, there's been such a stink about that at least our Defence Force yesterday said, well, it is now being considered, when, again, Ukraine is saying it needs them, it wants them. But why is this decision even up to the Army? Where's the Defence Minister? Where's the Prime Minister to say this must happen? Defending democracy is our business. Peter Dutton at least gets it.
Look, there's just no doubt whatsoever we should be providing more support to Ukraine. President Zelensky is a 21st century hero. He's a man who has stood up against a murderous dictator in Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is still bombing residential areas. He's still killing women and children. And that we wouldn't be standing with Ukraine in that fight for humanity is beyond our comprehension. So I think the Prime Minister needs to show some strength instead of the weakness.
Look, I know Australia is not going to be decisive in saving Ukraine. But America, that is. Though here again, the weakness, or in the case of Donald Trump, the treachery. Now, President Joe Biden is bad enough. He's refusing to let Ukraine fire the missiles and the rockets that's being given into Russia over the border to hit Russia's ammunition dumps and troop concentrations, save itself. But the frightening thing is that Biden still may be the best friend that Ukraine's going to get. Now look, I back Donald Trump over that giggling woke wonder Kamala Harris. But on one issue, I think he is a menace. He's a danger, profoundly wrong. Trump has got in his head Joe Biden caused this war in Ukraine, or at least he can pretend he did, and that Biden has wasted billions of American dollars by giving aid to Ukraine. And Trump reckons he can win votes, particularly from the loony right, far right, by attacking this war and attacking Zelensky personally. He's threatened to cut off US aid to Ukraine, which would cripple that country's fight to defend itself. Zelensky, in his speech to the UN yesterday, didn't mention Trump by name, but he did say this about China and the crazy left Brazil, which both want, like Donald Trump, to force a supposed peace deal on Ukraine where it gives up more territory to Russia.
The question arises, what is the true interest? Everyone must understand you will not boost your power at Ukraine's expense.
Now, in response, Trump went on a frankly disgusting rant, full of lies, at a rally yesterday, attacking Ukraine's president, but not Russia's dictator.
Nothing is standing. The crops are dying. We continue to give billions of dollars to a man who refuses to make a deal, Zelensky. There was no deal that he could have made that wouldn't have been better than the situation you have right now. You have a country that has been obliterated, not possible to be rebuilt. It'll take hundreds of years to rebuild it. There's not enough money to rebuild it if the whole world got together. They're not going to be satisfied until they send American kids over to Ukraine.
Such lies. Obliterated. There is plenty still standing in Ukraine. This was by a tourist guide. This was filmed by a tourist guide in the middle of its capital this month, with tanks left there to remind people of the war. Nor are the crops dying and whatever he said. Millions haven't died, 1 million in total. Russian mostly have died. And what's destroyed will be rebuilt. And there is no deal that would satisfy Putin other than Ukraine's ultimate defeat. And Trump's biggest lie. No one, absolutely no one, is asking America to send its soldiers to Ukraine. Why does Trump lie like this about a war that Ronald Reagan would have known instinctively demanded America do something to save a democracy from tyranny? And why does our government not dig just a little deeper to do something itself?